Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Derek Yale, and you are on another episode of The Hard Zone. The Hard Zone here, we talk about everything that happened in the political space in Liberia, and we bring you critical analysis, but we try to focus on the facts, and we do a panel discussions on everything happening in our political space. And we would like to say thank you so much for continuing to follow us and continuing to support the show, and we urge you to continue to do so by following the Liberia Radio and Television Network on Facebook as well as YouTube. At this point, I would like to welcome our panelists for the night. We will have in studio with us today is Bobby Mitchell Crawford. We have Mr. Ja Winkin Weir, and on this episode, we will have Fred Guyan. Fred Guyan with us. I'm sorry if I didn't say your name right. But welcome, guys. Let's start with Bobby Mitchell Crawford. Welcome to episode 7 of the High Zone.
Episode 7 already. Congratulations to us. Brother Derek Yali, man. It's a pleasure always to be on the High Zoom, the best show in here in the diaspora and in Liberia. And Brother Jack Winky Weir, good to see you. Brother Fred, good to see you. And I look forward to tonight's discussion. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much, Bobby Michelle Crawford. Let's move on to Mr. Ja Winkin Weir. It's good to see you again, Mr. Weir, and welcome to another episode of the Horizon.
Well, thank you, Derek, for this opportunity. I see Fred this is my second time seeing Fred. Fred, welcome back. It is unfortunate that you're going to leave us in the mix of my Lord Mayor. You started from day one and you are still on. I'm happy to be with you. Being with you makes someone to think outside the box all the time when speaking. So I will say thank you for the opportunity.
Appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weir. And being back with us tonight is Fred. Fred, thank you so much for joining us again. And FYI, Fred was with us for I think the second episode, if I'm not mistaken, and he's back with us again. So I'd like to say welcome back to the Hard Zone, Mr. Gwen. And correct me to say your name right. I'm sorry. Welcome to
Yeah, it's okay. That's it. The Fred Gwen, yeah. Well, thank you, Mr. Moderator, for the. I'm happy to be back, but I'm happy to be part of this zone.
Thank you, thank you very much, Fred Gwen, and to those of you watching us in TV Land or on Facebook Live or YouTube, continue to participate in the show by leaving your comments and follow the network, of course, and make sure you share the program as well. And for this program this week, we will focus on the president referring or likening Liberia, Monrovia to that of Miami. And we will also delve into the security sector in Liberia. As you know, last week we talked about the education sector. And this week we're going to put our lenses on and focus our lenses on the security sector in Liberia. And then, of course, we'll get back to the aftermath of the United Nations General Assembly that our president just came back from. But if you've been following the political happenings in Liberia, you will have seen that a lot of Liberia have reacted to President George Manuel Weah likening Monrovia to that of Miami. On this show, I would like to open up this show, but before I do that, I would like to like all of us to uh, I would like on behalf of the network to extend our condolence to one of our panelists who lost his father, and Mr. Ja Winkin Weir. I would like to say on behalf of the network, and we would like to say have our condolence. Our thoughts and our prayer are with you and your family, and we pray that the good Lord comforts you guys during the period of bereavement. And to honor the memories of your father, we would like to do a 15 or 30-second silence before we can get into the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, we have our sympathy on behalf of the Liberia Radio and Television Network. We extend our deepest condolence to you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, for the house on this week, as I mentioned earlier, the president of Liberia, Dr. George Manuel Weah, likened the capital city, Monrovia, to that of Miami in Florida. So we're going to get our panelists' reactions to that. just as a lot of Liberian in Liberia and in the diaspora has reacted to this, we will let our panelists to officially react to President. We are referring to Monroeville as Miami. Let's start with you, Bobby Mitchell Crawford. I would like
Hey,
to start. I would like to start with you on this. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Um, in Liberian political arena, for us in the opposition, I would be generous enough. I would say he misspoke. But here in the West, I would say that was a gaffe. And if the president himself can just admit that that was a gaffe, we will not be going about discussing this in the first place. Liberia political space is so small that every little thing make news, especially when it's President George Manning Weah. His visit here to the United Nations was something that happens annually. It takes away from his message. Whenever he steps to the podium to speak, it just gaffe after another. But here's what I would say to them, right? To compare Liberia to Miami and then to have surrogates come around to spin it, that's the one that I consider to be an affront to the Liberian people. You and I know that the city of Miami, where a lot of people go, like spring breakers, students go there to have good time. You live in the States, you see the infrastructure that Miami has. And to compare that to Monrovia, that don't even have a sewer system, we don't even have reliable electricity. That is an insult to the intelligence of not just the Liberian people, but it will invite scorn and ridicule from our international partners. That will create a sense of just being indifferent. Because if you say Liberia is like Miami, then you are saying in essence like Liberia is a first world country. Because there's no infrastructure deficit in Liberia, because there's none in Miami either. So to make that comparison, it's just I don't even know how to put a word around it. I think that was a gaffe, and he would have just admitted that that was something that he was trying to compare the weather of Miami to Liberia. But to just keep parading that lies and to have surrogate that Mr. Frere on here tonight are going to be defensive, to say, well, the president meant this, the president meant, we don't know exactly what he meant to say. Comparing the streets of Monrovia to that of Miami, I think is laughable. We shouldn't even be discussing it in the first place. There's serious thing going on in that country that need to be discussed. And I mean, referencing the president gaffe is just trivial. I mean, I'm sorry.
That was Bobby Michelle Crawford. Thank you so much for your reaction to President. We are likening the city of Monrovia to that of Miami. Let's move on to Mr. Ja Winkin Weah. Talk to us. President Weah referring to Monrovia as Miami. Give us your reaction, Mr. Weah.
okay, thank you. I look at it this way. I think what President Weah meant is that he gets all the resources as president of Liberia in Liberia, and it is the same resources he was receiving in Miami, Florida. So basically, I think you are mentioning that with a personal life, not the Liberian people. In Monrovia, Weah is now suffering from electricity and water. In Miami, you went to the house in Miami, it's sound like the same to him. They all look similar. So I think that's why he meant he's out of touch with the Liberian people to make that comparison. The last time I checked, for example, electricity in Liberia, the whole of the country, only 2% of the population that is even not even stable. No water system. There is no security infrastructure in place. No red lights, no stop signs. So it is laughable. The only thing is that as president of Liberia, if he goes anywhere, he has the security, they clear the street. And I think that's the kind of comparison he was making, that if he lives in Monrovia, he feel the same. Coming to Miami, at the house, he feel the same. So I want people to look at it that he was not making a mistake. I think he was just looking at himself that, well, I live the same life that I'm living right now in my house in Florida, if I go to Monrovia, it will be the same. I will got security. You don't have struggle to travel in Monrovia as president. It doesn't go out of electricity. It doesn't go out of light. You got the security. You got all of that. Even in the United States, when you're in Florida, you have the same security people around him doing exact thing that they do for him in Liberia. So I would say that he is not relating, perhaps, to where he came from when he was in Gibraltar, when he was in Claratown, when he lived there. I think as president now he forgot that those that living in Claratown, where he lived before, are not living the kind of life he's living. They don't even got water. They don't even most area in Monrovia they don't even have like even pump to build hand pump. Liberia, it is unfortunate that we have to even rely on international NGOs to build hand pump for our communities, to build public toilet for our communities. So the question is, what is the function of government if everything Liberian people have to rely on the help of the international community? So in short, or in summary, President Weah was making a comparison relative to his own life, not the Liberian people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ja Winkin. Let's move on to Fred Gwen, the president of Liberia. I mean, you already seen the video. You probably was there when he made that statement. Talk to us. He compared Monrovia to that of Miami. First of all, have you been to Miami or Fred Gwen?
I was just in Miami before I went to celebrate my 21st wedding anniversary a week
Well,
ago.
you will be the red man to react to this.
Yeah.
Then tell us, react to the president's
But
statement.
I'm even thinking about that. How Zoom going to make this that expression a piece for discussion? The president went and spoke to the world body. He spoke at the UN. He spoke at the UN. You think that Hazm, who I even sent our own reporter to get credentials to go into the UN building to be or listen to the president. He spoke at the UN. Everything he said at the UN, we are not discussing it. We are discussing an idiomatic expression that the president made to support us. I would call ourselves supporter. We were right there. I was like one row from the stage. And we're here discussing an idiomatic expression that the president made. And, and we all laugh because we know that where he was coming from. But Labrador got so many issues, got so many problems. Again, it seems like we are even forgotten that we came from a 14-year civil strife that took everything away from our country. We came from a place where, billions of dollars were given to us, to put ourselves back on our feet, and the money was squandered to high salaries, to cronies, and what I feel. This man is there. The highest money he gets from any international donor is maybe around $20 million or $50 million, or maybe we have never even gotten $300 or $400 from anywhere. I mean, it comes in sequences, small, and we're here discussing a passing statement that he made. The man's a whole speech talking about climate change, talking about where our place is, where we are in the world, where Liberia stand, what Liberia stand for, how can Liberia move forward. Economies. He's talking about our economic growth and everything. We are not discussing it tonight, but we want to discuss an idiomatic expression. What I would tell you, the president made an idiomatic expression. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, from Mr. Gwen. And according or Garth, or think about it, say it's unnecessary to talk about it. And Mr. We are actually alluded to the president was making to his life and making comparison to that of his lifestyle in Miami and that of his lifestyle in Liberia. But I'd like to refer you guys to a particular comment. One of the one Facebook poster made to that comment. Whether you call it a joke, whether the president was being serious or idiomatic or however you call it, someone said the president, in his capacity as president of Liberia, was being very insensitive and heartless to see the current state of Monrovia or Liberia as a whole and to make that comparison. Whether it's a joke, whether he was serious, they think it was very insensitive of him. It was very heartless. I give you guys 30 seconds each to react to that. But do you think the president was being insensitive and heartless by making that statement? Mr. Jawinkin, we have 30 seconds.
Okay, yeah, that's what I said. I think he forgot where he came from as president now. He was living Clara Town in that place, but he doesn't know what it means. So right now he forgot. He's sensitive about the plight of majority of Liberian people that don't even have food to eat. The Miami talks about they got food stamp, they got a lot of stuff, they got electricity, they got everything. They got Medicaid for people. People don't go hungry. So I mean, he was insensitive. I do agree.
Thank you. Let's move on to Fred Gwen. Someone, one commenter, one Facebook poster referred to the president as being insensitive and heartless when he made that remark. Whether you call it a joke or whether he was being serious, how do you react to that?
Well, I was there when the president made the remarks. I understand the context from which he spoke. I was sitting right there. So there was a series of statement he made before he made our remark. So now it calls into question, how you understand it. I'm insensitive. Well, I mean, I would say it's relative. Other people might see it being insensitive. I would say it was not. Again, the president have just spoken to the world about it, and he was talking to the supporters, talking to the seditionists. 90% of the people in our were all sedition. In fact, the red hat were more than anything. So when he made those remarks, it was something that an expression to compare his work that he was doing. So I'm not thinking. To me, it's not insensitive because it has nothing to do with what else you got food on your table or you don't have food on your table or there's drainage in Liberia or there's no drainage in Liberia. I mean, personally, to me, I don't think it was insensitive.
All right, let's move on to Bobby Mitchell Crawford. Do you think the president was being insensitive and heartless when he made that remark?
To Francis' point, whether he was speaking to sedition, you have to know that he's not president of sedition, he's president of the Republic of Liberia. And whenever he stepped to a podium to speak on national matters, he's speaking on behalf of the Liberian people. The only reason why this story has oxygen is because of that double down posture by surrogate like you. And it starts from the press call of the executive mansion. Carrasco is the one taking pictures. Carrasco is the one doing most of the video recording. He's giving the platform, he's giving the front row seat. There's no clear message coming from the executive mansion with regards to the president's visit to the United Nations. It started with a fight gaff, his wife engaged in playing Candy Crush on her phone. And whatever a president does, a visit of the magnitude going to be scrutinized. So that's where the handler come in. You cannot have a president making no kind of a mistake on the war stage, and then you do Monday morning quarterbacking by doing the cleanup. And that's exactly what Fred you're trying to do. They made a mistake, and it has only given it oxygen because the president had doubled down. He traveled back to Liberia, and he stayed parading the same story. Liberia is like Miami. And now people are making all kinds of jokes about it. In politics, you cut your losses. People make mistakes. Mistakes are the raw material for progress. But if you can't admit that you make mistake and you double down and you try to reinforce that mistake, you look like a buffoon. And those of your surrogate that come around to help you propagate that mistake or lies, they all look like Boo Boo the Fool. So, and what this does is it places Liberia in a state of ridicule, not just locally, but internationally. Instead of, and I agree with you 100%, we should be discussing serious issues like education, economics that affect the daily lives of the Liberian people. But here we are discussing the president as in your own characterization of either matter expression. I agree with you. But the president is a walking gap. And it will keep giving the oxygen because of people like you that come to be an apologist and just reinforce that narrative. And it's a sad day for Liberia. That's all I can say to that. I'm hoping that we can pivot to another discussion that will benefit the Liberian people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bobby Mitchell Crawford. It's a sad day for Liberia. The president comparing the Monrovia to that of Miami. And that was one of our panelists, Bobby Mitchell Crawford. And Crawford, thank you so much, guys, for your contribution to this lightning round of the Horizon and to our audience. This is just a teaser for what to expect on the Horizon tonight. We will take a very brief break, and when we come back, we will be delving into the security sector in Liberia, and we have a lot more for you. This is going to be a very intriguing show. Continue to follow the network. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube. My name is Derek Yale, and I will see you right back.
Hi, my name is Theophilus Julipan Nelson the First. I am the founder and CEO of Lift Africa LLC. Lift Africa started as an employment agency that sought the employment of immigrants coming to the US and finding ways and means to go to start life in this great your country. Now we have added airport pickups and drop, car rental, hall rental. As you see, we have a new business location. Started with just a little office part, but today we have a whole complex that we can do a lot of stuff with.
Hello everyone, my name is Geneva Kreitz. I'm the Executive Administrator of Uplift Africa. We have an excellent employment rate at our company. We work with and for you regardless of your situation. If you've ever been in prison, maybe your background isn't great, do not worry. We have a place for you here. We believe in equal opportunity for everyone, especially you. So sign up today and begin earning.
My name is Emmanuel B. Horton, Operational Director for Live Africa. Live Africa is the place to be.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Liberia Radio and Television Network. My name is Derek Yale, and I'll bring you another episode of the Horizon. We are going to get into talking about the security sector in Liberia. As you all know, having a country that have a very strong security sector is is very good for the country's image and also for investor as well. So we're going to look into the current how well the current administration has performed as far as security is concerned. And before we get into getting our panelists involved with it, we must state that when President Weah was inaugurated in 2018, it marked according to research, marked the first peaceful transfer of power from one democratically elected president to another. So that was the first episode of a strong security sector, and then ever since then we saw the departure of UNMIL in Liberia, and we have also seen series of protests. Liberia had one of the most peaceful protests recorded in the country's history. That's the June 7 protest, and also happening in Liberia there has been series of mysterious and unexplained deaths. So all of this calls for security concerns in Liberia. So we're going to have this discussion today to talk about how the country is doing as far as security is concerned. So we'd like to start with a general overview of the security sector in Liberia. Let's start with you, Fred Gwen. What do you think about the security sector in Liberia?
Well, before I even go to the security sector, I want to pivot a little bit and speak to Mr. Bobby for those statements he made about what are the presidents of Buffon or we are our laughing stocks and what I feel. Again, I would tell this panel, Liberia is our country. Hazon should not only look for negatives that we can discuss. I've just said when I went to Liberia, the rate in Liberia economic our money was like 200 to one. Now it's like 150. I've been 150 for the past 1.5 years. We are not talking about those. Those are things we should find. I mean, positive things. Do we ever discuss
Mr.
any positive
Mr.
about this government?
Mr. Gwen,
No. So,
with all due respect, we have an outline for the show. We will like to stick to the conversation, and I encourage deviation. If you will have to respond to a topic that we've already talked about, you can do so in your closing statement at the end of the show. So I would appreciate it at this point if you will go back to talking about the security sector or general overview of it.
So
Thank you.
if an attack is thrown at me, what do I do?
You could have raised a concern while he was talking and asked for 30 seconds. I would have given you that time to
As a
talk.
moderator,
And
I
I
will tell
think
you
I
when
think
you
I think I
listen
gave you 30
when you
seconds to
listen to
respond to him
a
before.
panelist and they throw an attack,
Hmm.
you should know say, okay, I will give you 15 seconds because he just called your name. You want to respond to him? I think that's what
He
we should
he
do.
called he called the president name. He did not call your name.
I'm just telling you.
Well, yeah, let's go. Let's talk about the security sector.
Well, Labrador, our security is still, to me, in my own estimation, is weak, and there are so many factors. Look, Liberia was still, when I entered Liberia in 2021, I thought we had just come from war. The country still looked like a country that just came from war. I thought nothing was done. Um, the capital city is overpopulated. Of course, Liberia is the only country where the police go to bed when everybody else they are going to bed, but the police goes. You can see police after 8, 9 o'clock in the night. So yeah, this our security sector is weak. The judiciary is weak, and those are things that I think any government should focus on. If you have a strong judiciary, that would also encourage more private sector investment, because I want to be able to sue when I'm wrong, or I want to be able to sue when somebody wronged me, and when I wrong somebody, they should be able to sue me. We don't have that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I would think our security sector was still at the bottom 4, and then we need more work. The government needs to focus. The police director needs to do more work. We need to find experienced people who understand the art of policing, and that's one of the sector you cannot play with. You can't carry friends to say, oh, this man, I'm a man, I'll make it. This person, no. You have to find train and professionals to help those sectors. And I think that the government is still trying to do some of those. Um, Personally, for me, I think we're just surviving by luck, because when you see how the only professional group that I see in the country that are well, that I think they can do well, is the military. But the military cannot be police officer. The military cannot be in the street every day. But the military, I think they are well suited. I don't know whether they can defend us when it's needed. But I think that one of the professional group that I've seen in the country so far is the military. But the policing, the criminal, how they call it, criminal investigation department, the whatever Moral Bureau investigation, all of those things are all broken down, and we need to bring those back, and we need professionals, and I think the country needs a lot of work in that sector. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I will get back to you on something you said, but let's move on to Mr. John Winkin. Give us an overview on the security sector in Liberia.
All right, thank you for this opportunity. The first thing I would like to say is that I'd like to say, like, there's a saying that say that experience is the best teacher. Liberians experience civil war, and nobody is willing, based on that experience, to support a war in Liberia. And based on that understanding, peace in Liberia is sustained. People are dissatisfied, but looking back, what happened during the Civil War, nobody wants to engage into that. The other thing again is that what is going on in Liberia? Liberia is relatively safe when it comes to travel. You can travel to Liberia, no much problem. Liberians are not really attacking foreigners. Liberians are attacking Liberians. Armed robbery is on the rise because of unemployment, because of corruption in government, because of lack of security infrastructure. Based on all of these factors, in the first place, there is no electricity that we said earlier. Only 2% of the whole country receiving electricity, no water. as Mr. Gwen just said, I tried to go to court in a country in Liberia. If I were to take Crawford to the police station, they will ask me to look for money to buy a sheet of paper. The police that will go to carry the rate, all of that. Because of all of these things, there is no support from the central government. Even if you were to put any trained man at head of the police, they cannot operate without resources. They cannot operate without a defined, what did I say? That's a big definition, the role to play. There are a lot of security sectors. You got the NSA, you got the national police, you got immigration, you got also private police. The functions are not defined. People do whatever they want to do. So the government really needs to, like, that's why people die with no trace, no investigation. The death of the 4 auditors, the continuing death of young girls that visit their people, and they haven't brought anybody to justice. Things continue to happen in this country. So the question is, what is President Weah government doing? They should not look at the Liberian people using the past experience of the war to think that they are not seeing what is happening in the country. As a result of that's why you see a lot of people engage in the jungle justice. If you are suspected of stealing somebody something, people in the neighborhood will take the law into their own hands and grab you and flog you. If you don't mind, you'll be beaten to death because there is no structure, because there is no trust. How can you complain against somebody? The police, the court, everybody wants to pay money. So if that is the case, why should I report anybody, or why should I complain? Why should I sue anybody? So we need a thought process. Why it is true that Liberians are not willing to engage in the civil war, the central government, currently held by President Weah, they should see that the Liberian people don't want war, but at the same time, they need security. The last time President Weah said people should be their own security. And based on that statement, people in the neighborhoods are attacking others who they perceive as somehow maybe they have not seen you around area. You got to pass there at night. I've traveled to Liberia at night. People even afraid after 10 o'clock to take a cab to go somewhere without anybody being with you. And that is not good for the country.
Thank you very
That's what I
much.
have to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weah. Let's go to you, Bobby Mitchell Crawford. Talk to us about the security sector in Liberia. How do you think the current administration is performing?
All right, let's do some house Zoom. I know you like to hear that. Well, to Francis' point, right? No one is attacking you. In a democratic setting, there are diversity of views. In fact, dissent is a higher form of patriotism. We are not uniform in our attack. We and I don't share the same political orientation. So this is not a show that attack George Weah. I am not a supporter of George Weah. So whatever I say here would be something that will speak up of some of his deficiency. But having said all of this, it is the cardinal responsibility of any government, not just Liberia, to protect the citizen. In fact, in the context of Liberia, right, it is enshrined in the 1986 Constitution at 4, but it is the responsibility of the Republic of Liberia to provide security for the inhabitants of Liberia. But here's what happened. You have an armed forces of Liberia that have a manpower of 2,500. You can go check it out. That's correct. I don't make up facts. The police force has 500 personnel. Maybe roughly around 300 to 250 are well trained. With a population of over 2 million people, the last census I checked, the city of Monrovia alone, and you have 500 police officers to provide security in the absence of UNIMIL, that is a situation for insecurity, for lack of a better term. And to make matter worse, the budget that will pass. I know Fred alluded to, how this government has created jobs. One of the things that in the concept of Liberia, one of the things that cause security issue in Liberia has to do with job insecurity. People are not gainfully employed, but I'll come to that. This is what I wanted to say in regard to the security situation, right? If the appropriate amount is allocated for security, take for example the executive protection service. This growing budget that passed, there are more money allocated for personnel that guard the president than that of the Liberia National Police. There are more money allocated to the Monrovia City Corporation that serve the municipality of just Monrovia itself. I just dropped my mic, see for that. That serve just Monrovia itself than the Liberia National Police. That have different division. The police is centralized, but if they give them money, it is allocated in all the different zones. So that says a lot about the security situation. That we don't have appropriate money that is going towards that sector. And you will have taught, since George Weah took power, UNIMIL were providing security during Ellen's time. You will have taught that this administration was taught it was to invest, trying to fill that gap that UNIMIL left. But what they do instead, they provide more money for the EPS. And today in Liberia, you still have armed robbers. To Fred's point, I agree with you 100%. The security situation has just gotten worse. And that's the sedition saying that. It has gotten worse. But there are certain things that can be corrected. The training academy they have, the police training academy, I think they have in Painesville. When is the last time they pull a graduate? It's been a long time. What are the quality of teachers they got over there? They have none. The last time they had recruit was 2 years ago. So these are the little things that you need to do to correct some of the deficiency you have in the security sector. If you are a trained police officer and you are not appropriating the amount of money needed that will affect security in the country, that's a recipe for disaster. And as a consequence of these conflicts, it is the people that are suffering. People build houses. I'm building a house in Johnsonville. The fence is high. One of my American friends asked me, is it a prison? Because I make the fence high, I have to put barbed wire and grass bottle around the fence.
Exactly myself.
So normal days, we never used to do that. Time has changed. So when we come here to criticize President Weah, we want him to do better. If you think you need to be protected and your EPS personnel, less than 100 men, has more money than the entire police force of the Republic of Liberia, that says a lot about where your heart is. So stop shifting blame about we doing something. Put your money where your mouth is, or put your mouth, whatever they say, in whatever, context. So I think the security situation in Liberia is a problem, and it needs to be addressed. And I think good leadership can do that. That's all I can say to that. You muted, Derek. Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. Let me get back to you, of Mr. Gwen. You alluded to the poor security sector in Liberia. Now, let me ask you, what is the current administration doing? And also, you can also reference in the president asking the Liberian people to be their own security and also installing CCTV. Talk to us about that.
Well, I just listened to my friend and brother here talking about Omid was there. Why didn't we, when Omid left, why didn't we train? No, the question should be switched. When Omid was protecting us, what did we do with the money that we had? Because when somebody tell you, say, I will pay your rent for 1 year, it doesn't mean you must take your own money and misuse it. Because when that person leaves, you still have to pay your rent. So when Omid was in Liberia for those 6 or 12 years, That's what the time we're supposed to start building our security forces, our police forces, training them, providing logistics. The Liberian police, they don't use our logistics, So the government here is tired. There's so many problems she has on her head. I mean, security is more important. She have to prioritize security. But at the same time, you got students that need this. The medical, the health sector is there. The other sector is there. So the government is tired. Look, we blundered from the start, and the government needs to prioritize certain areas in the sector. And when the president talk about protecting yourself, guys, stop taking just one line out of this president's mouth and using it to
The
attack him.
president says citizens should install CCTV. I don't think that was one line.
Well,
What do
I
you
mean, even if you install the CCTV, you still got to call police when somebody comes through that television. The police still have to come. If the police don't have the logistics to come there, you are still not being protected. So the president said that. I think he was wrong for making that because you have all the CCTV. Somebody still got to come to arrest somebody. If you don't have logistics for police to come out, you'll be at your own peril. So it's a serious thing. Every time I go to Liberia, that's why I don't stay crazy like Oro
what
and
do
all this.
from Mr. Grant, what would you advise this president to do right now to improve the security sector?
Well, they got to be robust. They have to put men in the street. They have to put more money into policing. They have
What
to
do you
buy
mean when you
more
say
police cars.
put men into the street?
They need to buy squad cars. They need to buy logistics. They need to buy radio. They need to buy a lot of things for the police. You need more police in the street. You got 2 million people. You can't have a 100% guarding 2 million people in a capital city. So they need to put more money into the policing. Do they have that money? Can they take money from somewhere else and put it in there? That's the call they have to make. But it's a serious problem. But I just don't want to take all the blame and put it on this administration. We cannot do that.
It is the
Because
current
when you
administration, though.
come from war, they have money for every sector. You don't take this money and misuse it. I was talking to Fuma Salif. He said, "Oh my man, Professor," I said, "Fuma, what state did you leave the NSA? Can you tell me what state did you leave the NSA? Because you can't take you have the chance when they put you there. It's to build the foundation, start a base. Today, you talking about the police academy in whatever in Painesville, where they have it. What those support base? When the military were trained by the Americans, I got two nephews who came. One went to Fort Berlin, and the other one went to the Coast Guard base. They came 4 years before even Ellen could leave power. The American put more money into the military, So the money that was coming for why didn't we put our police forces or all the sector in better shape? So the blame is not only on this government. The blame
All right,
is spread around.
All right, Mr. Thank you so much, Mr. Gwen. Let's move on to Mr. Jar Winkin. I think you listened to Fred Gwen. He's saying that the government should share the blame for the poor security sector in Liberia. Respond to that, and when you're done, I will ask you the question for the panelists.
Okay, yes. So, like, one thing I want to say, like, you talk about Bobby Crawford talking about when Ume was in power. I mean, when in charge of security. Why they say that the other government never use the money to maybe train the police. Then the other thing he says is that he talks about the healthcare sector. The last time I checked, JFK, which is one of the best hospital in Africa, we are having right there empty. He's building a new hospital, what he calls a military hospital, instead of utilizing our resources to better the JFK that is more accessible to more people that reside in Monrovia. They don't have to drive long place. It's centrally located. I want the JFK is very deplorable. So before you blame the past government, that's one of the major mistakes we have made. I think the problem with Liberians leader, no we alone, is that everybody wants to do something in his or her name. That I did this or during my administration. That is not service to the Liberian people. The JFK It's a bit. It's if you are in JFK, the structure is like on any of the hospitals in the United States. It should be maintained, but nothing. If you were to go to JFK, if somebody even take your brother or sister in a wheelchair, you have to pay their money to do so. At some point, if you go to see somebody, you got to pay. That's how terrible we are talking about security. And you were blaming somebody about that we are focusing about it. Yes, we need healthcare, but all the hospitals in Liberia, government hospitals, Redemption, all of the hospitals, even though nobody is saying that we are is responsible for this problem, but we are was a promise. We are was a hope for the Liberian people. So they are disappointed that he doing the exact same thing for which the people elected him instead of a professional or any of the professional politicians.
Thank you, Mr. Jawinkin. I think I would like to ask you a question. I think you alluded to it before. One can argue that President Weah or the Weah administration has done fairly well when it comes to security in the country, as far as they have maintained the peace in Liberia. That is one of the arguments that people that support the administration can say. How do you respond to that? Has President Go ahead.
As I said in my opening statement, it is not because of we has magic for security or a Liberian people love him so much. The reason why we have security in Liberia is that majority of Liberians, they understand what happened during the Civil War. We were all affected. Nobody wants to go back to that.
So you wouldn't give the president credit for that, for maintaining the peace?
Well, there is no we're not the we administration itself cannot say this is the process they put in place for which we have that level of peace in Liberia. Because in the first place, if you have less than few police officers, less than few people, if you can provide more money to your personal security more than the security force of Liberia, how can you justify that your policy is protecting Liberian people?
Mr. Weah, let's move on to Michelle Crawford real quick. To the point Mr. Weah was making, would you give the president credit for maintaining the peace so far? And also, protests in Liberia are not always peaceful. It is under the administration that Liberia recorded one of the most peaceful protests. Would you give the administration some credit for that as far as security is concerned?
So peaceful protests, what the student at the University of Liberia that were brutalized, was that peaceful? But that besides the point. Like I said, I mean, for some reason, I don't know, I don't like the pace of the show. So let me give it some oxygen. Here's the thing though. Fred, I am not an apologist, a UP apologist. I was one of the few people that are even supportive of Ellen. So whatever narrative you're trying to pay about the current administration, but I would say this to their credit. It was truly instrumentalities of Ellen government that the $25 million security assistance package was given on behalf of the armed forces of Liberia to restructure the army. It was during Ellen time that you know that during the war they destroyed all of the infrastructure, including the police academy in Painesville. They had to rebuild that. My problem with the CDC administration, since they graduated with people, the 500 cadet that now occupies the Liberia National Police Force, there have not been any other graduation. So if you run on the material of change, hope for change, which is confusing in itself, and you think the past government did not do anything, then that begs the question, why was an internal audit not conducted to hold them responsible for their corruption and misdeeds? You know, why you didn't do that? So to say that where the money went, I can agree with you that corruption in Ellen government, but you cannot excuse the fact that whatever they lay as far as security, even in Unimil, at the time Unimil was in Liberia, there were AFL soldiers and police officers that were embedded with Unimil soldiers, providing VIP escorts. even before they left. So it is the same security arrangement, the same security apparatus that Ellen left in place. Nothing has been subtracted, nothing has been added. The so-called payroll harmonization that you alluded to earlier, police officers are still being paid the same amount, $150 a month. Why? Because my cousin is a police officer. Pay is not regularized. They are underpaid. The EPS make more money than police officer. The National Security Agency make more, just a regular officer make more money than police officer.
That's true, yeah.
And that is a problem. If you come from a war situation and there's chronic unemployment in the country, we serve as a catalyst for all kinds of nefarious behavior. You need to emphasize policing in communities. So budget needs to be appropriately allocated. This is what the city government is not doing. This is a valid criticism. It is not about what the past administration did. It is what about you doing, especially in the presence of budget surplus that the finance minister always like to talk about. A man that I feel he exposes political philosophy more than authoritative measures. For the very first time in budgeting history, the budget moved from 500 million to 700 million, but then the service delivered to the people remains the same. So how am I not coming to advocate on a to criticize the government for not doing enough in all those cardinal sectors like security? That is so important because that is the number one responsibility of any government, to secure the people in their homes and their belongings. And I see all of this. All I see is excuses. What the past government didn't do right. What are you doing? There's 500 cadets, the same people. The 2,500 AFS soldiers that Ellen put out, the same people. No addition, no subtraction. What are you doing? That's the question.
I think that's a valid question. Mr. Fred Gwen, would you like to take a stack at that?
Well, I mean,
what is the current administration doing?
He giving statistics that, I mean, I've not seen the statistic that the police force is only 500, and it's only 2,500. I know there was a recruitment exercise that went on 2 years, a few months ago for the army. So when he's talking about only 2,500 military forces, I mean, I don't know for the whole country, because I know every country have a force. So maybe they send 10 to Benji there, 2 to Sano, and so those numbers are not. I don't want to believe those numbers, but that's my own argument is you have to put money into these sectors, and the money that the government is getting. First of all, you got to remember, the government is the highest. It's the highest.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Gwen, but the question is, what is the current administration doing? And also, I'm sure you were listening to Bobby when he spoke about the current administration not increasing the security apparatus, and also talk about security personnel are being underpaid. So, in you answering our question, address that, or what is the current administration doing?
Well, I don't think that we are undermanned. I don't think the police force is undermanned, because he's only saying 500 cadet to start with when Ellen came, but that number has grown.
To what?
For the army, and I might not be able to give you the full statistics, but I don't think it's the 500. What are we doing to increase the number? Officer making $150. Well, harmonization, that's because you have other officers making more money than other officers. So the pay rate starts from 150. That's what it's set it from. If you say that is not enough, I don't know the strength of the Liberian economy to what we should get our officer 500. That could be true, but again, you have to cut your. I mean, where you want to put money into more policing. You want to
Mr. Gwen, for the sake of our viewers, right? Just summarize this. What is the current administration doing? A, they're doing X, Y, and Z. B, they're doing this. Just tell us that, and then we'll move on to Mr. John.
Well, they're trying their best. That's what I said. I said there's recruitment going on.
They're trying.
They cannot. We can't put. I just told you. I said the security sector needs more help. I'm with them on that. But the numbers you gave me, I don't believe in the number that we have.
Forget the number. let Bobby come in for 30 seconds. Bobby.
Yeah, real quick, the Fred, 500 personnel makes up a battalion. At the current mixture of the armed forces of Liberia, they have just two battalions. One is in Moserala County, and another one is in the Hub in Bon County. All the different county has squads. You know what make up a squad? 30 men. So AFL present in all the different counties are 30 men.
Shuffling, there's not a battalion shuffling?
No, it's not a battalion. They don't have a battalion. No, shuffling is in Moserala County or Magibi, whatever.
Magibi.
So Magibi, I would say that's a battalion over there. So all the other counties have squads. It is the police officer, different police departments. So the entire army, they had just two battalions in Mangibi and the hub they have in Bon County that serve Nima, Lofa, and Bon. I just wanted to make that correction.
I have to check that out, but I still don't believe that we have.
He's the chief of staff. He's my friend.
Okay.
So I know.
I mean, that's okay.
Mr. Gwen, you still into what your current administration do. I mean, you're here to defend the administration. What is the administration doing right now to address the issue of security to increase the security?
I mean, we've been doing very well. He just said that the people are not going in the street because they came from war and because of the war thing. That's why they are not doing. No, the CDC government is the first government that even fed demonstrators. The last time the people joined the street, we got police people giving them food, giving them drink. So we're trying to keep the peace. And John, because it's a peaceful man, we don't have political prisoners. The press is very free, and nobody can say something. You can cuss Joe Real. You go in from whatever Jamaica or whatever he lives. You go there, you can cuss at him, and nobody gonna do anything to you.
So that's what the current administration is doing.
Yes, we got free press. Free press.
I mean, like him or not, George, we are the first president probably in Liberia history that fair protesters. So you can have your say on that. But let's move on to let's move on to Mr. I mean, you can give him that, right? You know what I mean? The man he fed the protester. You can
and even invited Costello come back. Costello's going back to go run.
He's the Jesus Christ of presidents. So that one you can give that to him. He fed the protester.
After the backlash, right?
That should be that.
after he closes.
Okay. Let's come to you, Mr. Jadwick, and talk to us about what you can talk to us about what you have to say first of all.
So this is what I have to say. Like my organization, we had agreement with the UNDP, and we did gender equality training for the Liberia National Police. All the counties were represented. During that training, what we realized was that many people are not willing to go in a rural area to serve for many issues, including benefit, including traditional policies. In some towns, some people don't want a police because lack of education, and the system is not willing to change itself. People who are held the police, they don't want real reform within the system. They still hold to the whole system where when you are commander, people worship you, or those who want to feel if they were to even arrest anyone, if that person was a friend of the director or the commander, nothing will be done in that case. And part of the problem we also observed was, or they reported to us, was that even like if any officer were to arrest somebody and put in anything, and if the police officer on the front line were to arrest that person, and that person attempted bribing that police officer who at the front line, and if the officer were to refuse and brought that man to the commander in turn would take the bribe, set the man free. As a result of that, the next time the officer will not force himself or will not even reject bribery from a perceived culprit or somebody who's trying to violate the law. So in Liberia, really, we have a major problem. And the way to deal with that problem is to allow the structure to work. not based on personality, not because Jawinken Weir is the commander, not Mr. Frey is a director. So if Frey is a director and if Frey brother commits a crime, he calls, and this thing had happened, we can cry about funding and all of this stuff. But unless we all agree to change our attitude, unless we allow rule of law to take a place where no one will be above the law, we will continue to face the problem. Even if you were to bring in people who are well qualified and you bring in fire support with that kind of system where people use connection to circumvent the rule of law in the country, where those in power or the law is not applied to them, until we are willing to change the system where rule of law will be applicable to all Liberians, regardless of one's status in government, whether you are a minister, whether you are a director, no matter who you are, everybody should face the same law. Unless you do that, we will continue to have problem in Liberia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jawinken. We are, and let's get into the issue of mysterious death, mysterious and unexplained death. To this day, we've had over, if I'm not mistaken, over 20 mysterious and unexplained death from from former President Tubman's son, John Hillary Tubman, to Odell Sherman, to Princess Cooper, and you name it. There has been a lot of unexplained death in Liberia. Now, I want you guys to talk about that. Let's start with you, Fred. How what do you get to say to this, and what image does this give of the country as far as the security sector is concerned?
No, it presented the country in a bad manner. I mean, it falls back to what we all been saying. The police are ill-equipped to investigate crimes. Further, when anything happens in Liberia, as soon as boom, they say somebody fall here, or somebody die, or there's a death there, everybody run to the place and converge on the whole place. There's no crime lab. There's no capable crime lab. There is no real police work, investigative work that is done. So all of those things, I don't care what, even if the person die or natural death, it still has to be investigated and findings have to be made. But we don't have those capabilities. So that's what, that's where the problem comes from. And
so you're saying the administration is not doing anything because they lack the capability to do so?
No, I'm saying the police is not doing anything because they lack the capability. They don't have crime lab. They don't have trained police, criminalists who would go in there to investigate. And those are the areas where the government needs to put a lot of money. If you want to solve these cases, you must have fingerprinting expert. You should have people who can do real investigation. I don't know whether we have that. And it's not good for the government because you can't have people dying and then somebody come out, oh, the person died because the girl that died, they said she died from TB. A pathologist went there and did what they have to do, and the family has not come up to challenge the pathologist finding. So that is still in the air. But all in all, we need professional work to be we need a high technological advancement when it comes to our police force, and I don't think we have that yet, and it's a serious problem for the government.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to you, Bobby Michelle Crawford. Talk to us about mysterious death and unexplained death in Liberia, and also how the current administration has responded to all of them.
Whenever you have, in the case of the auditor that worked for the Liberia Revenue Authority, and I think there was an ongoing saga at that agency, and then all of a sudden the auditor lose their life, and then you have the death of a political figure. One can help but wonder if there's a connection. You cannot have security in a country in the absence of a robust judicial system that is capable of adjudicating cases that affect the people. Part of the reason why We have so much aggrieved citizens because whenever hurt is perpetrated against them and they go to seek redress in the court system, they are denied their basic rights. And that in itself is create insecurity. And oftentimes, not just in high-profile cases like the disappearance of the two boys in Simoes at the Simoes funeral home story, the government comes out, they say, we are launching an investigation. There's never a conclusion to any investigation. This government has launched a lot of investigation without any conclusion. And that just, that just to Francis' point about the police being ill-trained. That's just one component of it. I just think the government don't have a vested interest in making sure some of these things are fully investigated. I'll give you a classic example, right? In the case of the auditor, today's date, there are people that have corroborating evidence that the police never elected to speak to. The evidence, people came out with half facts and they decided to ignore it. Then it makes one to wonder, does this have some political connection? Is the government really sincere to pursue these leads? So if you have the pathology that a citizen died, the government pathologist saying one thing, an independent pathologist saying another thing, and the government is arguing, oh, the person died from this, then it makes you wonder, who is the government protecting here? So just all these different instances make people to wonder if the government is not even involved in some of these secret killings. If it is not a political hate, besides the air training of the police officer, besides the lack of equipment, besides the honor funding, some of the thing has political undertones. And the Georgia government should be responsible for this. So this is not an indictment or just saying that Georgia is responsible for all this, but if you show an indifference, whenever a citizen is hurt, especially a political citizen, of someone that has something to do with the government, then that begs the question, man, I wonder if they may hang inside the thing here. And you and I know it is a known fact. Like when people can meet with anything, but they don't meet with news. The dismissed, suspended presidential effect state minister, Miguel, he was running a death squad in Monrovia, and that's a fact. Former AFL soldiers. That's a hard thing to say on the high Zoom, right? But it's a fact. Here are AFL soldiers over there going after enemies. And just 2 months, maybe a month ago, we had Solomon George saying, you just made me police director for 1 day. I will come after all those criticizing George Weah. Those kind of a mindset. And I don't know who can recall this. There was a gentleman who came out one time to form the Crew Defense Force to protect George Weah, a former warlord. And then you have Prince Johnson, who is a known notorious warlord that is in Kabul with the president, saying, I support you for a second term. And they're clapping for him. If you put all of these different confluences together, then it makes you wonder if the man is really serious about security. You cannot commit to war crime court. You cannot commit to funding for the security. You cannot commit to increasing the manpower of the security force. All you do is pivot, criticize the previous government. What are you doing, Mr. Weah? You've been president for going to 4 years. All you do is criticize. That's fair.
6.
That's fair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bobby Michelle Crawford. And let's move on to Mr. Jad Winkin. Speak to us on mysterious and unexplained death in Liberia and also the current administration reactions to all of them.
Okay, there is one thing I see aside from the role of government. Liberians, we are selfish. Why do I mean by that? Here in the United States, for example, you will be in an apartment complex with people you don't even know their names. But if anything were to happen, the very neighbor who does not speak to you will be the first person to call the police or to come to your rescue. If your house was to get burned, the very people who don't know you, but who are your neighbors, will be the first. But it is the opposite in Liberia. When something is happening to happening to somebody in the neighborhood, somebody say, "Oh, that is not me." So we don't get involved. Somebody will be in the street. People will point finger. We don't want to help. That is a cultural problem. And when it comes to the government, the problem we have in Liberia today did not begin with President Weah, but we are talking about it because he refuses to change. He just occupies the structure, the same old structure that is suffering Liberian people. Because the government knows that Liberian people will just complain for a few times, but after a few minutes, few days, we all forget about that. Again, here in the United States, a case can take up to 20 years. All of us say no. But it is not the case in Liberia. I guess President William might have meant to do something good, but he hired the same old advisors from the previous government official beginning from the old regime. And they tell him, Mr. Weah, you were not the first person to become president. You just coming, you're not going to change it. So you better do your thing and move by your business. You will never face Liberia problem. That's what you are told. And I believe that that's what he's told. In reality, in Liberia or in the African setting, there is no real advisor that will look up to the president or whoever is the boss when he's doing wrong. If you were to book an appointment to see President Weah, the very advisor will tell you that, look, if you see the president, this is happening. So tell him, you who is a guest. In other words, whatever the president does, because they are getting paid from that position, there is no good advice. Weah is not everywhere to see everything, but those who are around him, they tell him the truth. I mean, they don't tell him the truth. They tell him that everything is okay. So in spite of all that is going on, people who are dying, nothing can come out of it. I guess they are telling him that, look, it is the same Liberian. After a few days, they're going to forget about that. And I think President Weah should understand that he's under obligation in line with Article 1 of the Liberian Constitution. We clearly state that the responsibility of the government is to provide security and satisfaction for the Liberian people. So the government of President Weah can learn from the past mistake. Our failure in Liberia is our refusal to learn from our mistakes. We always think we are right. We always think it was done before, so it is always good to be done again. And that is a wrong path. So for security to be better, the government should clarify what one needs to do and what you don't have to do. If you did this, this will happen to you. It has to be seen. People should see evidence that if I did this, this will happen to me. But if I have Crawford as my friend right now, if he's in government, well, I know if anything I did wrong in Liberia, Crawford will protect me. And if that happens, and that's what we'll continue to do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jawinkin. And let's take a final step at this, and then we will take a break. Let me go to you, Mr. Bobby Mitchell Crawford. What would you say to President we are right now, as far as like grading him on his performance in the security sector? And just give us 30 seconds of your message to President we are right now, and I will do the same to Jawinkin we are, and then we will close out on this topic.
The executive branch enforces the law. And I know Congress, or in the case, the House of Representatives in Liberia, they appropriate money that the government spent. So if I was President Weah, I would be advocating for more money for the security sector, especially for policing. All of there are 15 counties in Liberia. They have different police detachments. Just within Monserrate alone, most of the police depots, they are not fully staffed. When I mean fully staffed, each police depot is supposed to have 50 personnel. You can count less than 20. The uniform are mixed match. They don't even have baton or flashlight. They are not even equipped as on par with security officer here. So I will ask the president, instead of providing more money for the EPS just for his protection, he should use divert some of that money to the Liberia National Police Force so that they can be able to resurrect the police academy, pay for trained teachers that will come from abroad to teach them the science of policing. Part of the reason why you see all the different the deficiency in the police force is lack of training, and then that has to do with the low wages that the police officers that make. Increase police officer salaries. How can you live on $150 a month that is not even regularized? So all that boils down to appropriating the ref funding. So if I were advising we are the men that ran on the method of change, and you want to address the issue of security in the country, invest in protecting the people by equipping the police, by equipping the law enforcement agency, by equipping all of the different law enforcement agency, by making the judiciary more robust, where people can go to address their grievances in a manner that will satisfy them. So these are things that I will focus on and I will advise the president to do. But again, that's George Weah. He's not going to do that. He's focused on other things.
Thank you. Let's move on to Mr. Ja Winkin Weah. Talk to President Weah and his performance. Go ahead.
What is lacking in Liberia is trust. The Liberian people do not trust our security system. They don't trust the structure. So if I were to advise President Weah, how do you rebuild the trust in the infrastructure of the security of Liberia? Because of lack of trust, so people are even reluctant to complain. We're talking about death rate. If one were to see it, they don't trust the police, or if you tell them what's going to happen. So to bring about trust, people need to see changes. People need to see punishment meted out if people are guilty. So I'll plead to President Weah and the security agency, all the government people who are involved with security in Liberia. The Liberian people do not trust them. Winning battle trust means they have to be accountable. They have to be transparent. They have to show that if you did this, this is going to happen. There should be no segregation. There should be no division, regardless of one power, regardless of one position. As I said earlier, the law should be equally applicable to everyone, regardless of your status in government. Until that trust is rebuilt between the government and the Liberian people, we will continue to have problems in Liberia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ja Winkin Weah, and also thank you, Bobby Mitchell Crawford and Fred Gwen, for your contribution on this segment of the show. And before we take a break, I would like to say that every president, including President Weah, has the constitutional responsibility to provide security for its citizens, as enshrined in the Constitution of Liberia. So we will continue to call on the current administration to do all they can to provide security for the country, because the lack of a strong security sector give us the problem that the current administration is facing today. And I'm speaking of investment drought. Because of poor security system, the administration has not been able to attract investors. So the country definitely needs to, the current administration definitely needs to address that if they are vouching to be seated, to be re-elected come 2023. However, next year is elections. We have people making the case right now to unseat President Weah. So when we take a break and come back, we will be getting into their plans to address the security issues in Liberia, and we are making reference to the opposition community. George Weah feel us when it comes to the security system, as some have argued, what can the opposition community do? We will answer that question when we come back.
Hey there. Many Liberians are members of social clubs, 501c NGOs, and school alumni. Many Liberians are trying to open their own 501c NGOs, home care agencies, and social clubs. Does your organization have a professional website? Does your web platform have the right wording and content to attract grants? Hopefully you're not running your organization only through social media. There's a more professional route. You need an online space where you can craft a positive message about your organization, making your home health agency more credible, which will increase your chances to receive grants. We'll build you a responsive platform for 501c organizations, healthcare agencies, and other types of organizations. We'll provide you with full website maintenance, membership sign-in, private charts, Facebook and WhatsApp integration, live video feed for all your meetings and special occasions, a dashboard for members to see all the activities, and email and text auto reminders for meetings. We'll build with donors and 501cs in mind, and will help you solicit grants and automatic membership due collections. Building you this amazing platform will only be a membership fee of $19 a month. Call or email us now. Let's upgrade your website. Home health agencies and small businesses, you owe it to your company to project the best image possible, and we can make it happen. Visit www.tiamit.com or call 215-966-8679. Ask for Tommy.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever you're watching us from, this is the Liberia Radio and Television Network, and you're watching the Hard Zone with Derek Yale. And it has been a very intriguing and interesting show so far. We have talked about the president comment comparing Liberia to that of Miami, and we also talk about the security sector, how well or how poorly the current administration has done. And now we are going to get into the plans of the opposition community to address the issue of security. As you know, it is the constitutional responsibility of every president of Liberia to protect her citizens. So we will be demanding that whoever vying for the seat of the presidency to have a plan to address the issue of security in Liberia, because a good security system attracts good investors in our country and uplift the condition of our people. So let's welcome our panelists back. We have a new face with us, Miss Reverend Adit. Just joined the team of panelists, and I would like to take this time to officially welcome you to the Horizon. Reverend Adit.
Thank you very much. It's a great privilege to be on this panel with such sound minds. I'm looking forward to hearing, learning, and discussing issues pertaining to our motherland, Liberia. Thank you for the privilege.
Thank you very much. And of course, you guys have already met Bobby Mitchell Crawford and that of Ja Winkin Weir. So let's just get into it. Let's talk about you guys' plans or the political persuasion, the political party you support, or the political leader you support, their plans for the security sector. We've talked about the current administration enough, and you guys have given your contribution. So let's talk about the person you support. And Mr. Weir, I'm sorry, I don't. I'll have to start with you on this. You support Tewon Gonglo. All we have heard about, and to be very generous, we have heard Mr. Gonglo talk about his plan to end corruption or to at least fight corruption in Liberia. We have never heard him spoken about security sector. So talk to us about Tewon Gonglo's plan to improve the security sector in Liberia.
All right. Thank you very much. I support Gonglo because he believes in the rule of law, and for Liberia, you cannot do anything successfully until you have a rule of law in place that is not favoring certain people because of ascribed status, because of connection in government. Uh, the law will be truly blind. It will be applied equally, no matter of one's status or position in government. So on day one, under Gonglo's administration, the first executive order will be that the security apparatus, particularly the Liberian National Police, will have the right or will have the power to arrest anyone who violates the law of Liberia. That means nobody will be able to say like, well, I know John Brown is in power. So if your card is pulled over, for example, using the number to call police officer, the call that going to stop on a Gonglo. And when that happens, even if you were even minister of Gonglo in Gonglo's government and you are arrested, I mean, you violate the law, you'll be arrested, no matter of your connection with Gonglo. He promised that, and I think that will bring about trust that I was speaking about earlier. When in Liberia people see that nobody is above the law, that the law will be applied no matter of one's status in government, whether you are in a village, whether you are a market seller, whether you are a taxi driver, whether you are a sweeper in a specific working place. People need to recognize that if you are a minister of government and somebody is a sweeper, all of you are working for the Liberian people. Being minister does not mean you are better than the sweeper. Being minister is why they pay you more, they give you more incentives. But when it comes to treating human being with dignity, being minister does not make you difference. Does not make you a different person, in other words. So under Gonglo government, he's going to make sure that the law will be applied. So on day one, there will be a executive beginning with the police of Liberia having the power to arrest anybody. Under Gonglo, the rule of law will be student through the court system as well. Like as I said earlier, judges will be trained, resources will be provided to our judges, magistrates, or all those that will serve in this position will be trained. They will not be appointed based on connection in government.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jawinkin. Let's move on to Reverend Addy. I know this is going to be a first contribution to the discussion, but yeah, you take a stab at the same question. And for you, I would say the opposition community. How do you think the opposition community can address the issue of to strengthen the security sector in Liberia? And if you want, you can also tell us your political persuasion if that's okay with you. But how do you think the opposition community can address the issue of strengthening security in Liberia?
Well, first of all, any opposition that's fortunate to become the incumbent has a constitutional duty to protect Liberians under the Constitution. So for me, I believe Liberia already has the laws in place that governs the nation state, the territory, among several others. So personally, the issue for me is not about the law. It's about integrity and enforcement by the executive branch of government. If there is no integrity to implement the laws will only be theory on the books.
That's correct.
So by virtue of this reality, it's only incumbent upon every aspirant to uphold the Constitution, treat everyone equal under the law, and so that we can all have a society foundation on law and order, so that the peace and security of the nation state is in compromise and therefore leading to chaos. So any vision around that has to do with the enforcement of the law and or the Constitution. Anything short of that will be compromising the socio-economic and political stability of the nation state. So currently our military is at 600 men, I heard. I stand corrected. Should the government advance or increase rather the number of paramilitary and military men to geographically protect the nation? Absolutely. Do they need to have programs that train the paramilitary and military personnel? Absolutely. So every political party has a vision to improve security. So theoretically, it's in their platform. But I'm looking for a party that is able to demonstrate that integrity will matter and the enforcement of the law will be their priority, irrespective of color, creed, or economic status in the nation state. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Adit. And just to give a summary of our panelist contribution, Mr. Jai Winkin, we stated that his guy Tewon Gonglo will enforce the current law, giving more power to the police to arrest anyone, irrespective of their positions in government or what have you. And Mr. Adi spoke of he says the current law are in place, but the focus should be on people with integrity to enforce the current law. Let's move on to Bobby Mitchell Crawford. Talk to us about your guy plan on strengthening the security sector in Liberia.
Thank you. That's one thing that I think most political parties, my fellow panelists will agree with me, that is underreported, but that is not expanded on exclusively. For example, Mr. Cummings, he talks about the 5 pillars. That is infrastructure development, job creation, healthcare, education, agriculture, not in those order. But I don't hear security, and that's the reason why. What caused, in the context of Liberia security, what caused the security issue in the country has to do with jobs. People are not gainfully employed. There are a lot of people that are economically constrained. And as a consequence of that, they engage in behavior that is antisocial, like armed robbery. So I would think the reason why emphasis on the Cummings is placed on job creation is tying with security. So in order to solve that is to have tangible investment, where the citizen can be able to engage in gainful employment. And another thing has to do with strengthening the judicial system. I agree with the Reverend point about applying the laws. And I'm sitting here, the brother here is looking at me so hard. I'm lost in my train of thought, but I'll just get my own track. That has to do with the judiciary, the strengthening of the judicial system, where citizens, if they go to court, whatever grievance that they brought to the court is adjudicated in the manner that justice is served. So all those things tie in with the security of the state, the enforcement of existing laws, people having their cases adjudicated in manners that will certify them, the creation of jobs that will help them, to solve some of those issues that will have them constrained to engage in behavior that society will frown on. So these are all different things that need to be addressed. In Latino comments, when job creation is addressed, we will see that the security of the country to a certain extent will be addressed as well. And I also think, and I think I alluded to that point earlier, that has to do with a trained police force. A country that is coming off a war situation, emphasis should be placed on the robust, well-trained police force that will engage in community policing. As it stands currently, I think I alluded to this earlier, the police force is underfunded. The last budget that the House appropriated, there was not enough money for the police force. The Executive Protection Service that guides the president received more money than the Liberia National Police. The last time the police academy in Painesville Polar graduate was on Ellen's time. So they haven't pulled up any police cadet. So if you have a population of around 2 million people, the last census I checked, that's the population of Monrovia. And you have a police force of under 500 men that are undertrained, underfunded. That's a recipe for disaster. So a lot of the things that the police engage in with regards to investigation, they should be given the tools and the apparatus to make sure that whatever investigation that they engage in is fully exhausted. A lot of time we have mysterious death in the city of Monrovia and its surrounding. The police force come in, they say they're going to launch an investigation, and we don't have a desirable result. These are things that the government needs to address. And a lot of times, surrogate or the government will come out to give excuses about the past administration has the president of Unimil, that helped with the security sector. But then the argument can also be made that you have a budget that increased from 500 million to 700 million. The argument can also be made that we were able to appropriate enough money for the EPS and not that of the Liberia National Police. So it has nothing to do with funding. It has to do with priorities. What are the priorities of the government? The chief executive officer is interested in protecting himself and his family. What about the common man? This shows up in the budget. So if we are talking about security, it is the executive that should deem it necessary, to make sure that existing laws are not only enforced, but, the security sector is fully funded, not just the EPS, not just the Joint Enforcement Agency or the National Security Agency. So this is the problem we have in Liberia. And it is a recipe for disaster, especially in this day and age where people are economically constrained. There will be constrained rather. I know it's an oxymoron to say that, to engage in other activities, that would be a problem for the society. So I think job creation, the judicial system, and the trained police force is the way forward if we want to address the security situation in the country.
All right, thank you so much, Bobby. Let me play some. I listened to all of you guys' contribution on how the opposition community can strengthen the security sector. But let's play some politics here. Let me start with you, Mr. Reverend Addy. Do you think you talk about integrity and someone that has the will to enforce it, to enforce the law? Do you think? Let me just mention one opposition figure. Do you think Mr. Cummings has that integrity you're talking about?
So when it comes to Mr. Boyka and Mr. Cummings, I do not doubt their credibility. I do not doubt their education or experience to lead or credibility. I think they both have what it takes to move Liberia further. They've demonstrated record integrity as evidenced by Mr. Cummings' involvement with Pittsburgh cocoa factory, among several other things. I'm also confident in the integrity of Honorable Joseph Boyka, who has a track record of working in our government for several years, highly credited by 4 presidents: William R. Talbot, Samuel Kayendo, Amos Sawyer, and then Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. So I'm confident in his integrity to lead Liberia, consistent with his track record and long service of contribution to the nation state. Thank you.
Mr. John Winkin, you listened to Reverend Addy in his statement about integrity. He mentioned Alexander Cummings and that of Joseph Yimambwaka, but he never mentioned your God. What do you have to say to that?
Well, basically, I think there is no question that anybody who knows Councillor Gonglo, he has integrity, no question. Gonglo served in government, and He has no record of corruption. Gonglo is the only guy who served in government, who received money and went out of the country and brought the balance back and reported that. No other person ever did that in government. Gonglo also resigned from Sali government for disagreement, for refusing to do what the president asked him to do because it wasn't right to hire certain people who weren't qualified. Gonglo has been a poor man lawyer for years. He's not able for resources for himself. He's very humble. That's why they call him the poor man lawyer. Gonglo was offered to teach at the Harvard University in the United States. He turned it down for Liberia. There is no one in Liberia to point to a single record that Gonglo was ever involved in government, in corruption. And that is why he recognizes that in order to get rid of corruption in Liberia, it should start with the presidency. So he wants to be the servant in chief for the Liberian people, not honorable.
Mr. Wee, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but tell our audience though, why do you think Gongo is the right guy that will be able to strengthen the security sector, taking into taking into account his performance while he was serving in government?
Yes, Gonglo believed that, as I said earlier, Gonglo believed that nobody is above the law. That's number one. Regardless of your position in government, you should be prosecuted if you violate the law. When it comes to job creation that people were talking about, we all know that people are involved in the corruption because of unemployment. The second thing Gonglo plans to do is to, on day one, to also announce the second executive order where raw laws will not be shipped out of the country. The laws will be processed in the country. That will create jobs. There are so many things, but you cannot do anything successfully in Liberia unless the Liberian people have trust in the implementation or enforcement and application of rule of law. So everything that we're doing in Liberia, development, employment, all of these things, when the people are corrupt, when there is no rule of law, you cannot achieve anything because we have been in that stage from J.J. Robert time to this point, where people in power are above the law. But under Gonglo, nobody is going to be above the law. Everybody will be treated the same. So because of that, I trust him. And he has demonstrated that when he worked with Sawyer, he served in Sali government, as I said before. But it is very, very difficult. When he was Solicitor General, he insisted that those who were appointed to be magistrate in other places across the country were properly trained people. So, but he also recognized that it is difficult to just, if you are not the head of, because in Liberia or Africa as a whole, the presidency had too much of power, influence over the other two branches of government. And he wants to set an example that nobody will be above the law. And this is why he has been advocating for the poor. He has been serving as a poor man lawyer. He's not the kind of guy that ran after or big money to be a corporate lawyer, because he believes that if the Liberian people are better off, the country will be better off. So you're going to follow Article 6 of the Constitution to make sure that Liberians are better off in the country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ja Winkin Wea. And let me say this: the top three opposition or leader right now, Tewon Gongo, Alex Cummins, and Joseph Boakai. One may argue that we do not have anything to look at to say they will have the will to do better than President Weah in improving the security sector. Alex Cummins and Joseph Boakai they were in the CPP, and then came crisis within the CPP, and we also had that one. So they did not manage the crisis war, and today they are at loggerhead. And for Tewon Gonglo, it is yet to be seen what we can actually look at to see if they can do better than President Weah as far as the security sector is concerned. So, what do you guys have to say to that? How can you convince uh, someone watching the program tonight that Ellis Cummins, Tewon Gongo, Joseph Yima Bwaka can actually fight, can improve the security sector in Liberia? Let me start with you, Bobby Mitchell Crawford.
How can political bickering equate to security in the country? That's an oxymoron. I mean, I'm sorry. So
Crisis management.
crisis
Crisis
management has,
management within the CPP.
yeah, that's I will call it whatever characterization. That's political bickering. It has absolutely nothing to do with security. But I don't know why we pivot to security when we're talking about integrity earlier. If who has the integrity to talk about, I mean, to bring about security reform. The question of integrity is a character judgment that I am not in a position to pass on. But I will say this though. The best predictor of past behavior is current behavior. And Mr. Cummings has demonstrated through all his employment in various capacity, first at Pillsbury and then with Coca-Cola factory, that he's a man of integrity. And you need a man of integrity at the helm of the executive branch of government to enforce the aforementioned things that we talk about with regards to law and order in the country. You need a man of integrity to be able to strengthen the judicial system that he felt had a problem because he himself was a victim of the judicial system, a trumped-up charge against him that later was proven to be false to the extent where the man who prosecuted him, the then Solicitor General, in the person of Serena Cephas, in fact, in one of the sanction against him has to do with that. So I don't want to speak in general terms when it comes to security because, like I said earlier, it is starting with job creation, and I don't want to keep going in cycle here. And in order to have able security in the country, you need someone who understands the needs of the people. And one of the needs of the people is adequate health care. One of the needs of the people is access to education. So all of these things needs to be certified. When the people are not fare well, they will engage in criminal activities. So that's why Mr. Cummings always emphasized the 5 pillars of his administration if he's given a chance. Infrastructure, job creation, healthcare, education, agriculture. These things need to be adequately addressed. The Bureau is a unitary state, for God's sake. We are not facing external enemies. Most of our problem has to do with those social issues, those social constraints that has to do with the lack of gainful employment, the lack of opportunity. People cannot access their basic needs. And as a consequence of that, people engage in activities that is considered criminal. And if even people have grievances, they go through the court system, their cases are not adjudicated in the manner that will certify them. That creates insecurity in the country. There's no way that the sub-region is going to sit supinely and allow Liberia to dwell into another conflict. It's not going to happen. But what the government needs to do is to make sure the condition is created where every Liberian can be able to live and develop their potential. Not telling them to provide adequately for different security apparatus that will help make their life secure. It is their fundamental right. And I don't want to keep going in circle on this. There's not a plan on the CCP website that says this is how we're going to allocate this amount. This is how we're going to do this. But I know the CCP is going to focus on training. It's going to focus on wages. It's going to focus on community policing. Because if you're winning yourself all war, you don't have a standing army to go engage another country. So you invest in community policing because it is in the community crimes are committed. We don't have perceived enemy or external aggression. So I think the army should be reduced and more emphasis should be placed on community policing. And that is not happening.
thank you very much. Let's talk about the strengthening the security in the perspective of how would the current opposition leaders address the current security concerns in Liberia. We're talking about mysterious death. We're talking about just inflammable remarks by government officials and politicians. How would Tewon Gongo react to that if he were president today? Let's go to you, Mr. Ja Winkin.
There is one thing we haven't talked about properly uh, with respect to resources of the country. Before I come to that, I know that in Liberia, we just say this person received the money from the UN, from the United Nations, but we don't talk about, for example, what do we get from the maritime program, from the Freeport of Monrovia, from the Rubber International Airport, from our lock-ins. What is it that Liberians getting from these resources, and how are they utilized? And these questions will be answered under the Gongoro administration. So in Liberia, I know that we want help, but there is no problem to say this is what we want to do, this is what we have, and this is what we need. That transparency is lacking in our governance system, and we need that kind of system. It is that system that whoever succeeds Mr. Weir, or if Mr. Weir were to win re-election, need to look at that before we talk about development. What is the worth of our resources, and how can we use what we have? So we talk about security. That is part of security. Um, the appropriation of our resources. As I said earlier when I spoke, that if you look at what we have, we will dance around security. But one thing I know that we don't do in Liberia, we Liberians don't ask our people how, meaning the government, how do they utilize our resources of the country, besides what the international community is providing. We need that transparency. We need that accountability. That is part of security system. And unless we begin to do that, we'll be dancing around the same thing over, because the government will always ask excuse that, oh, well, we're not getting it from the international community, we're not getting it from the international community. But the question we should ask ourselves is, what is the purpose of government? What is the role of government? Why it is true that government is not going to do everything, but how can the government help the citizen to help themselves? I know people usually quote the late John F. Kennedy, but they don't tell you when he made that statement. Because Kennedy, when he said that, ask not what the government do for it, but what he can do for the government, it wasn't just, so when he said that, his government provided a lot of opportunity, including people going to the moon, including America, many Peace Corps that went to all the other countries. There were a lot of opportunities provided.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Weir. Thank you so much for your contribution. Let's move on to Reverend Addy. The same question I posted to Mr. Weir. You spoke of Mr. Cummins and Joseph Jiman Boakan. How do you think in the administration they will address the current security concerns today? As for example, the news of mysterious and unexplained death, and also inflammable comments from politicians as well as government officials. How do you think those presidential, these political leaders will address that?
I don't want to belabor the issue, but I think all of my previous panelists have quite frankly spoken to the shared value of providing security in Liberia for all Liberians. Okay, so we can all deduce here that all of these political leaders, Mr. Gonglo, Cummings, Boyka, they're looking forward to ensuring that mysterious deaths have resolutions to them and that the security is something that is a right and not a privilege of all Liberians. So I'm confident that, you know, in their in, in their um in their leadership, they'll definitely have to address the security issue. You know, mysterious deaths cannot be, you know, something that is happening now and not addressed under any of these astute political leaders. So I'm confident in these three leaders that should they be given opportunity, they will address the issue of security, maybe different from that of what we have now, you know, by this current government, which I would sincerely hope that they get better at addressing the security situation in Liberia. So I have no doubt, and I think they have all expressed a shared interest with respect to the security of Liberia by the government, which is a constitutional duty of the leader. Thank you.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Hard Zone. My name is Derek Yale, and you're watching the Hard Zone on the Liberia Radio and Television Network. This is episode 7 of the Hard Zone, and if you've been following, this has been a very interesting conversation. We have our panelists giving you their thoughts on the security sector, and they also, in the beginning of the show, reacted to President. We are comparing Monrovia to that of Miami. And to close the show out, and then we're going to go back to that conversation and also reference our previous episode. We did talk about, we gave expectations on what the president will accomplish at the United Nations General Assembly. And we have seen the return of the president to Liberia. We have listened to press conferences from him, and also we listened to him speaking to supporters and also well-wishers of him, where he made a comment about Liberia being compared to Miami. So we'll bring our panelists back so they can tell us. Papa went to the UNGA. What did he bring back for Liberia? What do you make of the president's visit? And before we go any further, let's welcome back Bloje, Choppy, Charlie to the forum. Bloje, welcome back.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good being back, and thank you guys for keeping the show moving on.
Thank you so much. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of things, President. We have returned from the UNGA. I would like to start with you on this, Reverend Adi, because you were a part of the previous discussion on this. You didn't have the privilege to discuss with us on the expectation. So we gave you the honor to open up this discussion. Tell us, what do you make of President? We have visited to the UNGA and the press conference he had, and also you can also take a stab at him comparing Monrovia to Miami. Reverend Adi.
Well, I did not hear the president in detail with respect to comparing Monrovia to Miami. But if I may surmise, was he speaking about the weather? Was he talking about infrastructural development in comparison to Liberia? So until I hear that clarification from one of the panelists who actually listened to him, in what context? If he did not provide the context, then of course we are allowed to speculate as to whether or not he's doing an infrastructural comparison with respect to our country, Liberia, or was he talking about the weather because it's tropical in the sense compared to that of Liberia?
Sorry to interrupt you. Let me give you the president's statement before that. Maybe I don't know if it's going to help with the context.
Please.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The president said Monrovia used to be muddy before he became president, and now if you go back to Liberia, it looks like Miami. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. That was his statement before. I do not know if that will help with the context.
Let me if I could jump in a little bit with that, because I was in the hall when the president made his very statement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I heard the president very well. The president was talking about road connectivity. The president used a figure of speech called simile. So the president was talking about road connectivity. The president even went as far as talking about when he even became president, he tried to go to Johnsonville, just on the outskirts of Monrovia, and there was no way to pass. All the vehicles got stuck in the mud. There was no road to go anywhere. And so he said that since he became president, the various communities in Liberia are now connected by road, by community road. So you can move from one community to go to another community. And that's why he used a simile like Miami. Okay. So he was talking about connecting, moving from point A to go to point B. It is not about the infrastructure. It is about the connecting.
Reverend Adi, I hope that helps with the context, but continue.
So, Mr. Choppy Charlie, road is an infrastructure. So if the president is making the infrastructure regarding road connectivity, then I've been to Miami. Okay, then I think it's a matter of opinion, and which is far from the facts. The roads of Miami cannot be compared to that of the roads of Monrovia, not to mention Liberia. So if the president said that our roads connectivity can be compared to that of Miami, I would treat that an opinion, certainly far from the facts. So I respect him as a president. I've been to Miami, and road connectivity as an infrastructure can in no way be compared to that of Monrovia, Liberia.
Yeah, but thank you. React to the president overall visit to the UNGA. Do you think the country benefit, and what do you think about the president visit?
Well, you see, the General Assembly of the UN occurs to bring nations together to build what you call a multilateral approach to global security, the environment, health, among several other things. In that context, the president's speech was well delivered, in my opinion. But the reason why it's getting so much compliment is because, you know, Liberians have been very skeptical about our president's ability to deliver. So his speech this time around seemed much better than previous. But the reason why all of this is happening is because Liberia has been through so much and psychologically reduced to mediocrity. So what is expected of the president, when it's being done, we're celebrating it, because it's more of a mindset of, I hope he doesn't mess up. But this is what is expected of a president to well represent the nation state, overseas or domestically. So overall, I think the delivery was fine. The substance of the speech seemed far from the reality in Liberia. The substance of the speech seems far from the reality in Liberia. In terms of, you know, he mentioned carbon emissions reduction. I don't know where Liberia has the technology to determine whether we have reduced carbon emission in the country. You know, so, and there were some other things he said, you know, that you know, in as much as it was beautifully read by him this time around, I certainly, you know, don't know if those statements truly, you know, interlocks with the reality on the ground.
Thank you very much, Reverend Adi. Let's move on to you, Blow J. Choppy Charlie. Talk to us about the president visit to the UNGA. You was here with us last episode, and you told us your expectation of the president at the UNGA. Did he live up to your expectation? Talk to us.
I think we continue to have this problem in Liberia, what we call cognitive dissonance, the imagination of things. When one's talking about connecting, you have to understand it is not about the infrastructure development. There's a difference when you talk about infrastructure development, you talk about connectivity. So let's assume you have two points, from point A to point B. From point A to point B, there was no connection between the 2 points. Now there's a straight line connecting the 2 points. Another place, the two connecting points between A and B has gold. Your connecting point between A and B has mud. The fact is the 2 points are connected. A and B is connected in community 1 by mud, road. A and B is connected in community 2 by GO. We are not talking about the quality of the road. We are talking about the connection. So the president argument about road connectivity is a valid argument for anybody to suggest. It is a problem of the imagination of people to suggest that such an argument is not valid. Road connectivity, when there was no road connecting the 2 points, and now you have road connecting those 2 points to say that it is a bad analysis. That's completely off the chart, and it shows again, like I said, cognitive dissonance, and because of our own thought process and imagination. Let's move on to the other issue the Reverend just raised about immersion and technology. Again, coming back to the same problem, I don't need technology to tell me whether there's less smoke in the air. If I'm cooking right now, right, and I'm using a lot of wood that is burning smoke and putting a lot of fume up, and if I move a lot of those woods, the smoke will reduce naturally. I can say I have reduced the smoke. So I don't need technology to tell me that. These are common sense things. Now, Liberia in the past had a lot of old vehicles, smoking vehicles on the road, all kinds of polluted things were going on. The government instituted a program that certain cars based on the age and other things will not be applied in the street. That created a reduction. So again, we have to be able to think about these things in a more critical manner than just looking at it in a very simple way, and only because we have a thought process that does not square with reality. So the president did what he had to do. It was very good.
Thank you, Bloje. I will come back to you on what the Reverend said about the president's speech. It was well delivered, but the substance don't match the reality in Liberia. But let's move on to Bobby Mitchell Crawford. Talk to us about the president's visit to the United Nations General Assembly.
I mean, I couldn't help. I was laughing in the background. You see how Bloje is struggling here. You just got an intellectual smack down by the Reverend, calm, cool, and collected. The guy gave you facts, and you here talking about carbon emission and blah blah blah. When the government instituted carbon emission, we don't even have technology. You talking about old cars not plying the streets of Monrovia? What kind of rock you living on? You see the amount of Duazet we get in Monrovia? But that besides the point. It was a gap to just, I think I alluded to this earlier. You know, it's okay. We human, to air this human. But to have surrogate like you trying to spin, it is painful. It is painful to watch you spin. You talk about road connectivity. All they did was to put quota in the Western, we'll call it Aspect Road. The road to Johnsonville, yes, it wasn't paved. There was no new road that connected any two communities. That's a lie. The road wasn't paved. All they did was to put quota on it. And you're trying to make the comparison to that of Miami? Come on, man. It's not one of the out front. You look like a buffoon. I mean, that's just it is. If you can parade all kind of lies and you try to defend the president, that's intellectual dishonesty. You know, I think the Reverend just put everything in context for us. He was being generous because of his status, and I like that. For me, I'm a political attack dog. I will say anything I want. I'm not going to be generous with you. I think it is a disservice to the Liberian people to come on this platform to be an apologist for an administration that is not doing so much for the people. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Bobby Michelle Crawford. And let's move on to you, Mr. John Winkin Weir. I would love for you to give us your reaction to the president's visit to the UNGA. But take a step at what the Reverend said, that the substance of the president's speech did not match the reality in Liberia. Talk to us about that. But first, tell us about your reaction.
First, to begin, I would like to say what I said the last time again. The UN conference is not a place where people go to get awards or to win awards. It's a place of leaders coming together to meet and discuss globally, to show that the world is united, tackling issues. So President, we are delivering a message. I listening to Bloje defend is so funny, because I am in Liberia every day. He's talking about road connectivity that can be compared to Miami. Which planet is he living on, Blue Jay? So I think the Reverend is right. We are probably was talking to his audience here, the CDC in the United States or elsewhere, because his supporters in Liberia, they haven't traveled to the United States or Miami. So if you were to say that, they'll say, wow, but then we are developed. Probably that was one of the reasons you were saying that. But Roger, you know that is not the fact. Now you talk about carbon emission, all of these things. In the first place, we as a country, we have rubber plantation in Liberia. We can't even produce a single rubber slippers. Before you talk about reducing carbon emission, before you talk about restricting cars. If you talk about cars, if you take any vehicles in Liberia, once you get small money to put in anybody's pocket, it's going to pass through. So that is not a reality that anything is being enforced properly in Liberia. There is no system to that. How many people can really inspect cars aside from looking at the age of the cars? Because looking at the year of the car doesn't mean it is old, but the performance of the car. You must know that here in the United States, we got old car older than you and me that are still plying the route of America.
Thank
But
you.
what we're doing in Liberia, the free people of Monrovia, if they see you have car 1980 or whatever, they say it is old. How? Because 1980 car can be as efficient compared to 2015 or 2015 car. So that analysis or that analogy is wrong, the way we do things in Liberia. So I will agree with the Reverend. We are just playing something else, but it was not a reality.
Thank you, Mr. Weir. Let's move back to the Reverend. You have two of my panelists agreeing with what you said, but I'll come back to you before I go to Blow J. You said the substance of the president's speech do not match the reality in Liberia. Can you give us some specific example that the president spoke about that don't match the reality in Liberia?
I mean, well, I don't want to belabor it, but the carbon emission that Blogier spoke to, that I mentioned and he counted, that you can look at it with your eyes and say it's fine. It's quite confusing for me. The president mentioned he has no political prisoners, so that's a fact. He has no political prisoners. On the issue of security, there was no substance on that. Liberia is still threatened with serious lawlessness in the nation state. On the issue of corruption, there was nothing spoken to that effect. The climate for business investment, he basically bloviated, on the issue. So in terms of content, around the theme of how we can interlock and what role Liberia can play. He was theoretically great at presenting potentially what role we can play to advance the socio-economic and cultural development of the nation state or its people. But what are the realities on the ground?
Thank you.
We don't know.
Thank you so much, Reverend. Let's go. Of course, let's go to Blow J. Blow J, I want you to react to what the Reverend just said. To what extent do you agree or disagree with him? He first mentioned that the content of the president's speech do not match the reality, and he just provided specifics. He talked about security and he talks about corruption. There was nothing said about corruption according to the Reverend. But I want you to focus on security and also, if you can, on corruption in the president's speech. Do you agree with the Reverend?
Well, I don't know what the Reverend means when he talk about security and corruption, because except the Reverend wants to assume that we have a Liberia to be an angelic country, and the people in Liberia are not perfect. There's no country in this world that is crime free or corruption free. So he has to be more detailed and specific. It is a problem that we're having here. The critique against the problem is not based on any substance. And I continue to repeat this thing. The critique against the president is never based on substance. It's kind of imaginary and myopic. or utopian kind of criticism. We have to move away from just the fact of being a critic to more substantive issues that can actually define why we need to change the way we do governance. So,
do you think I'm sorry for interrupting, but do you think, I want to hold you to this question. Do you think the content of the president's speech as far as security is concerned match the reality in Liberia?
But I mean, again, that's what I'm trying to end it on. It begs a question for anybody to suggest that there will not be security issues in Liberia. It begs a question. Or there will not be corruption questions in Liberia. It begs the questions. These are obvious issues. But is it as we want to consider Liberia to be like a jungle? I said no, because in Liberia, people change money in the streets day and night. I mean, people put the money on the street and change. I mean, a free society. So if Liberia was this jungle, people wouldn't be brave to put their money in the street. But the country is not absent these challenges. So these challenges are not only unique. These are human problem. It's a human condition, and every government or every country on this earth will continue to face this problem. The question is, are there actions moving forward that addresses this problem? Now that we want a country free of corruption or crime. I mean, that's
let's 45 seconds.
Somebody can tell me that.
Yeah, Mr. Weir, go ahead. 45 seconds.
Yeah, just I wanted to tell something about the carbon leak. I can say 99% of the population still using coal and firewood. We are talking about reduction of carbon leak and stuff. So I just wanted to point that to Glory. So if you were making that kind of comparison, we don't even have electricity. Everybody uses wood. Even the majority of people in Monrovia, we use coal to cook. We destroy the forest. We do all that kind of stuff. So how are we really taking care of the carbon that you're talking about?
Yeah, Derek, if I may.
Come in, please.
I think we all noticed the pivoting posture of the brother. And it is painful to watch. Liberia is a third world country with all due respect. We don't even have, like the Reverend alluded to earlier, we don't even have the mechanism to measure carbon footprint. The speech in itself, I mean, he stressed on key point. It almost the same Abdul was copied and paste. What he alluded to in that speech is far from reality in Liberia. I think the Reverend talked about that. And you guys are not doing George Weah a favor. Earlier we had Fred on, and he conceded to a lot of things that we talk about that is wrong with this government. You and I know that in the everyday lives of men in Liberia, the struggle is real. And we come on a platform and try to be an apologist. That doesn't contribute to the vibrancy of our nation. We have to be sincere with ourselves. We don't come here every night to criticize George Weah. We try to make him to do the right thing. And it's people like you that is being performing a disservice to this government. You're not telling the truth. The emperor has no clothes on. The man's a functional illiterate. I keep emphasizing that.
Let me hold you on that point, Bobby Mitchell Crawford, and let me go to Blue Jay and Choppy Charlie and bring his reaction to a point the Reverend alluded to. Or he said the president's speech was well delivered, and a lot of people has been praising the president that he read the speech really well. Do you think that is a fair compliment to a president for him to give a speech and then people's reaction is that he read it well? He read it very well? Do you think that is a very fair compliment to a president?
Well, I don't know if that is something that the aesthetic critique of the president, and this is a problem we have in the opposition. They are more concerned about aesthetic beautification as opposed to substance that move the country forward. And what I keep hearing is the president has not done this, the president has not done that. But let's flip the ball and even raise the debate to a point. And we're trying to challenge people who make the criticism. What is the solution? If you ask anybody now who are criticizing the president, what is a solution for carbon immersion, whatever, put a time frame, cost function. They wouldn't tell you. They would be unable to speak to these things. And for somebody to suggest that in the absence of Western technology, we are unable to determine whether use of things can reduce carbon or increase carbon. Or I don't understand our reasoning. So yes, again, the problem of the president reading good speech is in the hands of the opposition. I would even say the president should not even have spoken English. Let him just read a speech in his own dialect. Let's see whether it would mean that he's crazy. We need to look for substance. And this is why the opposition is so weak, defective. They are incapable of exciting Liberian people. They are incapable of influencing popular appeal because they are too concerned about aesthetic and not real problems that suffer ordinary people or the country. We have a 200-year legacy problem in the country, and somebody is telling me that George, we have to solve Liberian problem in 6 years. Is that a dream? Are these people coming from where? From the bottom of the ocean? Or where are they coming from? Let somebody give me a 6-year plan how they can transform Liberia. Nobody can do that.
Thank you so much, Blow J Choppy Charlie. I think Blow J Choppy Charlie just flipped the board. He put the ball in the court of the opposition. But let me give you 30 seconds. Go ahead, Bobby. In 30 seconds, please. You're muted.
Low education here, right? What is the culprit for carbon emission? I mean, as far as the whole pollution thing is concerned, right? That has to do with fossil fuel and other industrial activities that the Western world or the First World engages in. Liberia, like I said earlier, is a third world country. I don't think our emphasis should be on carbon emission, because whatever we do, we just parrot the narrative of the Western world, of people that, the industrialized country. We should focus on things that is relevant to the Liberian people. So the whole content of the speech, I think I would agree to a certain extent. It was great until to the point where he delved into a carbon emission and he tried to provide an explanation. Countries represented that was sitting at that table, I mean, they were just deaf too. They were like, this guy can't be serious. You are a third world country and you're trying to lecture on what you're doing to reduce your carbon footprint. You don't even have a footprint to begin with in the first place. That shouldn't even be your focus.
Thank you very much, Bobby Mitchell Crawford. Hey guys, we can talk about this over when the president visit to the United Nations General Assembly. For the close out on this segment, I just want for us to summarize it. Do you think the country benefited from the president's visit to the UNGA? And you can give us your closing statement on as you answer that question as well, and then we'll take a break and come back and do the icebreaker round. Let's start with you, Reverend Addy. Do you think the country as a whole benefited from our president being present at the United Nations General Assembly?
Well, Liberia is a global signatory to the UN. So every time there is an opportunity to make a world stage presence, definitely benefits the country. It shows that we're part of the global village. It shows that we're part of the global move to improve humanity's dignity. So I certainly hope that we'll have some reports on multilateral or bilateral meetings that the president had, or what advantage or opportunities he took to meet with leaders that will enhance bilateral collaboration or multilateral collaboration that will improve the socio-economic, educational, and health of the nation and its people. So I'm looking forward to hearing from the president what was accomplished other than the speech that was beautifully delivered. And let me be very clear to Mr. Choppy Charlie, my friend and brother. You know, he used some quite interesting adjectives: utopian, cognitive dissonance. You know, I'm highly impressed with those grammatical expressions and literature like simile. You know, we're talking about Liberia and the seriousity of the crisis we're faced with under this leadership of our president, my president, Mr. George Weah.
Thank you.
So the truth is very clear that he needs to do better, and we shouldn't be, you know, discouraged by the criticism that people are sharing with him. And hopefully he can improve and do better. I'm looking forward to the $13 million he pledged. He told the world that he has $30 million he's launching to help at-risk youth in Liberia. So I'm looking forward to seeing that program jumpstart as he's returned home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend. Let's move on to you, Mr. Ja Winkin. How did the country benefit from the president? How does the country benefit from the president's visit to the UNGA? And you can also give us a closing remark on this segment.
Okay. Here is how the country is benefited. President Weah came to the UN with officials of government. It was a gathering of world leaders. So that means it was an opportunity for his group to have researched and meet with other leaders that would not require them to make a foreign trip. It was easy because all the other leaders were assembled at the place that they can meet them without making trip in their respective countries or making additional contacts. That was the benefit. But it is difficult for one to conclude how it benefited because we don't know the details as to which contact that were made with leaders and other people that attended the conference. So I would agree that we need to hear more about that. What I can say about the whole trip, it was okay, as everybody said, those who spoke already, that yes, it is nice for our country to be part of such forum that is the gathering of world leaders. Whoever is the president of Liberia has to be at that meeting, but how to utilize the opportunity that is provided by the gathering of people is the question. So my conclusion is that yes, it was good for Liberia because it provided opportunity for our government and its delegation to interact with other leaders and delegates from other countries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ja Winkin. Let's move on to Bobby Mitchell Crawford. Give us your closing and tell us how did Liberia benefit from the.
Liberia is not only the founding member, but she is the architect. You know, I don't want to. Yeah, not even the right adjective to use. That you are a member of the League of Nations, and then in 1945, when the United Nations was founded, she was one of the founding members. So whatever the president of Liberia did, previous president did that before. The United Nations is not a place to go to beg for money. It is a place to go to discuss, you know, global issue that affect the global community. And in that vein, I think the president, you know, did well. Besides the antique and all the different gaps that he had, that his surrogate are trying to spin in his favor, and I think they're doing a disservice. But overall, you know, I don't think there's something that we should rather focus on, because next year he's going to do it, or the year after that, and it's going to be the same copy and paste, and Liberia will stay remain on same condition. But I think you should focus more on creating gracious of condition under which every Liberian can be able to live and develop their potential. That should be a focus. But the UN is, you know, it's really not relevant now as far as our politics is concerned.
Thank you very much, Bobby Mitchell Crawford, and I pick you to be last on this one. Loje Choppy Charlie, tell us, how does the country benefit from the president's visit to the UNGA?
I think this is just a regular, normal assignment for any country, especially a member country of the United Nations. So being a part of that body and representing accrue the regular benefit that any nation will get from the United Nations in terms of global corporations for peacekeeping in any country, especially our country like Liberia. Liberia is participating in United Nations peacekeeping process in Mali. So that puts Liberia also at the place that it can benefit from the global community. So, and besides that, there are a lot of other corporations, friendly corporations that one gets by participating in these organization talk. But I want to close just with coming back to two corrections. Bobby talks about fossil fuel and Liberia. Again, goes to the misunderstanding of how things are done. Fossil fuel merely problem is a Western problem, and I think he acknowledged that because of industrialization. Liberia is not an advanced industrial country. So again, we have to, this criticism has to be grounded in reality, and those reality has to be aligned to our own social economic conditions, instead of using or scenarios that does not fit. And on that note, I want to come back to the original point that we started off this discussion about the Miami comparison. I'd like to emphasize this point. If 2 points, point A and point B, was connected in one country by gold, and point A and point B in another country is connected by rope, you can make a comparison. The comparison is 2 points in one country is connected, 2 points in another country is connected. The question is connectivity. We're not talking about what kind of things the two points are connected by. We're not saying the other point is connected by gold or the other point is connected by diamond. The 2 points are connected. That comparison is a valid comparison. There's nothing wrong with such a comparison. So if we're discussing about the quality of the comparison, that's a different matter. So I think people should appreciate that. Let's, again, like I said, critique the president on substance as opposed to the aesthetic kind of corrections.
Thank you very much, Blow J, Choppy, Charlie, and thanks to all of you for your contribution to this segment of the show. And if you're watching us, continue to participate with the show in the comment section, and make sure you share the program as always, and follow the network on Facebook and YouTube. We will take a very brief break, and when we come back, we will go into our icebreaker segment, and then we will draw the curtain on this show. This is the Hard Zone on Liberia Radio and Television Network. My name is Derek Yale, and I will see y'all after the break. Welcome back to the Hard Zone. My name is Derek Alley, and this is the Liberia Radio and Television Network. Well, we're here bringing you live coverage of episode 7 of the Hard Zone. And so far, it has been a very interesting and intriguing show. Here on the Hard Zone, as you know, there's no fluff, just real talk. So we bring you issues on what are happening in the political space in Liberia. And this is the final segment of our show, and we call it the Icebreaker Round. And my production team has picked a very unique question, and I would like to get welcome my panelists back on the screen to introduce the question for the Icebreaker Round. The question here is, what is your favorite destination? Let me read the question as it is instead of, what is your dream vacation destination? Your dream vacation destination. And I don't know the answer, but please do not say Miami. But let's start with Mr. Darwinkin Weir. Your dream vacation destination.
My dream vacation destination. I like to. I want to have the opportunity to go back in my village where I grew up when I used to trek to school for an hour or more to see how I feel like at this time. And that is in Jeripo, rural Sino County.
Thank you very much, Mr. Weird. And let's move on to Bobby Mitchell Crawford, your dream vacation destination. Talk to us.
If you check my Facebook page, one of my hobbies is traveling. You know, to have a dream vacation, I wish I had money that I would be able to just travel across the globe, especially to visit Istanbul, Turkey. I mean, it's just an interesting place. It has an interesting history. I would love to visit, the Holy Land, Israel, to see and walk the street that Jesus walked. And it won't hurt to go back Liberia in Dental, to walk around the capital city of Moserata County.
Thank you very much, Bobby Mitchell Crawford. Let's move on to you, Reverend Addy. What is your dream vacation and destination?
Well, I'm the pastor of Agape International Outreach Ministries, and we take care of disadvantaged girls, and currently have over 30 children at our Bishop Lyndon Thomas home in Robertsville. My church supports these children with food, education, and healthcare, among several other things. I have not seen them since 2013. I would like to go back and see them and spend vacation with them in Robertsville, White Plains.
Oh, thank you so much, Reverend Addy. Let's move on to Blobby and Blue Jay Choppy Charlie. I keep making this mistake. Talk to us about your dream vacation destination.
Well, I like to encourage people to go to Liberia. I visited Patawi Waterfall in Bone County. I think it's a good place to visit. There are interesting spots in Liberia, but you can start from the Patawi Waterfall. That's a good vacation spot.
Thank you so much. And for me, as the moderator here, I'm a big lover of soccer, and my favorite team is Real Madrid. So I think my dream vacation destination would be to see Madrid play at the Santiago Bernabeu in Madrid of Spain. And if my boss, Mr. Anderson, can come in, I'll be there in a heartbeat. So on all serious note, though, it's been a very interesting show, and you guys' contribution as always just make the show even more interesting. And if you're watching us, this is how we bring the show to an end, but we will not leave you without the closing remarks from all of our panelists. And I'd like to begin this with you this time. Blow Charlie, give us a closing remark.
Well, I just think Matter of fact, it's always good to be here, and I'm happy today our friend Ade was here with us, bringing in a different perspective, and we hope to continue these dialogues. I wish that our friends in the opposition can come up with defined policy solutions as opposed to criticism. Always, I've not heard any real solution, time frame, financial cost, because all the criticism we talk about government should do this. Every time you say government should do this, you have to think about money, how much it's going to cost the government to do it, how long it will take the government to do it, time, money, and material resources. So we'd like to hear these things from our friends when we come on this platform and discuss. The hard zone must be the hard zone where people produce real facts, no gimmicks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bobby Michelle Crawford. Let's move on to you, Mr. Jai Winkin Weir, and then we'll take Bobby Michelle Crawford, and then I would like to close with you, Reverend Addy. Give us your closing remark.
Okay, thank you again for being here. Like, what I can say is to tell all Liberians, like, Liberia is for all of us. People who are criticizing the government should not be seen as enemies, but rather talking for the good of the country. We want President Weir to be a better president for the entire country. This is why we all talk about what needs to be done. As I said it last time, even the guy I'm supporting, if he were the president today and does the same thing Weir is doing, I will criticize him. Liberia is for all of us. We need opportunity for all Liberians to benefit. So as we are approaching the next election, I want for all Liberians to think about the country, not to vote for people because of connection, because of tribe, because of religion, because of ascribed status, but what will benefit them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jai Winkin Weir. Bobby Mitchell Crawford, the Lord Mayor of Bentor. Give us your closing remark. Go ahead.
Okay, Bloji, I think you will like this. I just want to commend the George Weah government for fulfilling their obligation to the CLSG line. That's the electricity that is coming in the West African power pool, sharing power pool connection that is coming from the Ivory Coast. They had to come up with $3 million. I think it was more than that, but I think they met of that obligation.
They owed $9 million.
Okay. Oh, $9 million. Okay. I think they fulfill a substantial amount of it. And from what I'm hearing, there's a possibility that the beginning of next year, hopefully, Liberian can start benefiting from regular electricity, regular efficient, cheap electricity. Because believe it or not, electricity is a driving engine for economic development. And a lot of Liberians that die from carbon emission, carbon monoxide poisoning as a consequence of not having reliable electricity. These generators, and they are not the safest to provide electricity. It is costly, it is deadly. And I'm a little hopeful that at least the Liberian government is able to, provide some services to the Liberian people. So that's something that I want to commend the George Weah government for, and I also hope that they can look into other sectors like healthcare, education that is lacking right now in the country. And it's always been a pleasure to be on the show here. It's very entertaining. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much, the Lord Mayor of Bentor, Bobby Mitchell Crawford, for your contribution on the show tonight, and it's always a pleasure to have you. Now let's move on to Reverend Addy. Give us your closing remark.
Thank you very much. I am a bit shocked that my friend and brother, a good surrogate of the CDC, is yet taken aback by constructive criticism of our president, who we want to become better, if only he will embrace these criticisms. So the last time I checked, the CDC was a formidable critic of the Eden-led government. This is the beauty of democracy. Through the eyes of the opposition, as a mayor, you get to see your weaknesses and hopefully advance. It is not the role of the opposition to provide solution to an incumbent government. The government is responsible for solution. You want to talk about solution? I believe many times I've heard Boyka, Mr. Cummings, invite the CDC-led government to, copy things from their platform and utilize it for the socio-economic development of the nation state. Unfortunately, that has not been done. So, in democracy, Mr. Charlie, I think we should be open to constructive criticism and not be sensitive when, in fact, the CDC is on the record for criticizing, leading demonstration against the then Ellen-led government. I'm highly pleased, satisfied, gratified, privileged to be on the show with such astute panelists, and I look forward to more discussions on the issues pertaining to our beloved country, Liberia. Thank you, and God bless the listening audience.
Thank you so much, Reverend Adit, and it is a pleasure to have you joining us today. And on behalf of the network, I would like to say thanks to all of you for watching and continuing to support the network and working hard behind the scene to bring this hard zone, to bring the hard zone to you and to our panelists. We always say thank you so much for your contribution, and we look forward to more discussions, more critical issues being analyzed here, and more factual-based opinions being proffered to our listening audience. And as always, we encourage you to continue to follow the network on Facebook, on YouTube. This is the Hard Zone. My name is Derek Galley, and we would like to draw the curtain on episode 7 of the Hard Zone. Wherever you are, we wish you a pleasant good evening, good morning, or good afternoon. Thank you.